Hey, going live, and we are live. 1 minute late, thanks to StreamYard and Facebook having a little fight.
Okay,
but here we are. Happy Tuesday, our Tuesday little warriors.
Hello, darlings. Glad you could join us.
We have a very, very special guest today.
Oh, yes. A lady full of stories.
Yep. Yeah. So this lady typed the lyrics to George Harrison's All Things Must Pass, and she is the Miss Odell of George Harrison's song written about her. She's the subject of Leon Russell's Pieces Apple Lady, a song he wrote to woo her. Ooh. Ooh, woo, woo. We'll have to hear about that.
No.
She is the mystery woman pictured on the back of the Rolling Stones album Exile on Main Street, as she worked as their personal assistant on that infamous 1972 tour. And she's the woman down the hall in Joni Mitchell's song Coyote about a love triangle on Bob Dylan's Rolling Thunder review tour. So without further ado,
follow that, any of you, I dare you.
You're able to see us okay, Martz? We're live to the world? Yes?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we don't click the wrong button because StreamYard's given me spiel this morning. But we're good to go. And ladies and gentlemen, things drop out of the ceiling, confetti and all kinds of champagne poppers go off for Miss Chris Odell. Good morning.
Hello. Hi, Chris.
Good morning. It's so good.
Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Absolutely great. Thank you for joining us. Where are you phoning in from today?
I'm in Tucson. You know, get back. I took it literally.
That's funny. I love that. To Tucson, Arizona. That was where our dear Linda breathed her last, I believe.
Yes, right? That's right. Actually, I was with Mary Frampton the other day. She came to visit me, and we drove out there to where their branch was or is, whatever.
Yeah,
that's wild. Wow, that's beautiful. So, I mean, my God, where on earth do we start? So, we were just talking a little bit before the show about how one evening you got in 1968 a call. A friend of yours called Allan phoned you up and told you that you absolutely had to get somewhere to the Brea. What was it called?
The Brea Inn.
What was that night all about?
Well, I was supposed to. Alan Ryder he later married the Bionic Woman, so that could have been me. Anyway, he was just this really. I was working for this record tip sheet that told radio stations what to play, what new singles. So I met all the promotion men. Yeah. And he asked me, we were going to go out somewhere. And he called and said, late, by the way. And he said, I'm at the La Brea Inn and there's a man here I think you should meet. His name is Derek Taylor.
Oh, wow.
He works for the Beatles, or he was the Beatles press agent. And I went, no, nobody knows the Beatles. The Beatles don't exist. They're little stick men. This is, this can't be for real. But I fought him. And then he said, no, come over. So I did. I went to the La Brea Inn, which was right down the street on La Brea from A&M Records, which is where Derek had his office at that time.
Right.
So Derek gathered people, as you well know. Right. He always had people just kind of.
Yeah.
And so I went there and I met him and I was absolutely tongue-tied.
Yeah, he was hilarious.
He's just indescribable as far as I'm concerned. Unless you knew him, it's hard to talk about it.
Oh, yes, we knew him well.
Yes. So that was my meeting with Derek, and then we just stayed friends. And his wife and family, Joan, had left to go back to London because he was going to work for Apple then. And he didn't drive. Not so unusual in England, very unusual in Los Angeles.
Right.
So I started driving him around to all of his meetings and dinners, and eventually I had to quit my job.
Wow.
Because I couldn't do both. So for a month, I drove him around. And during that period of time, he said, I think you should come to London.
Cool.
Yeah.
How old were you? You'd be
19. I was
19.
Just kind of going towards 20.
So what did mom and dad think? Uh-oh.
Well, mom and dad didn't really know all that until I told them I was moving. It took a long time for Derek to convince me. It took him at least 2 months. and with phone calls. And they, I don't think they understood, but I look back today and think they were amazing because They sold my life insurance policy to buy my airline ticket.
Oh my Lord.
Wow.
They took over payment of my car and drove me to the airport.
Wow. And you sold your record collection, didn't you?
That's what got me the money to really go. Was I had to sell. I got $100 for my record collection, which
Oh my God, $100.
Wow.
I know, but I had so many boxes of singles that, you know, it was hard to let go of those. I wish I still had them actually.
Well, but you know, going from thinking, gosh, I'm going to have to part with all these wonderful vinyl records, to then a short while later sitting in the studio when they were recording the White Album and Abbey Road and Let It Be, and you know, you get to sing on Hey Jude. I mean, come on.
Yeah, if you put it that way, there's not really much more to discuss, is there, about that?
Right. Elizabeth's just saying, bless your parents, because, you know, back in those days, in the late 60s, it was very kind of like it is now, divided. And as much as generationally, there were the conservative people, and then there were the freaking hippies and the flower power people, right? So for your parents to say, come on, let's help you do this and live the dream.
Yeah, it's quite something.
It is quite something. And actually, when I decided to move to LA, this is kind of how my parents were. And it's not that they were so liberal with me. They were very good and careful parents, but they didn't deny me my journey. Because when I said I was moving to LA and I was going to take money from my hair cutting class I was taking, Dad said, no, I'll drive you.
Oh.
So he drove me to LA. So they were really helpful in my getting out of my home and moving on into the world. I think it was pretty amazing.
You're originally from Oklahoma, is that right?
Well, I was born in Indiana. My parents moved to Oklahoma when I was about 1. And then we moved to Tucson when I was about 10 or 11.
Oh, I see. Okay. Simon Weitzman's just popped on and said hello.
My dearest.
Absolutely.
Hi, Simon.
Hi. So
anyway, tell us, what was the sort of typical working day at Apple? What did you do? Anything?
Well, once I got the job, it took a while. I mean, even though Derek brought me, I still had to find my own space there.
Oh, yeah.
And I did eventually, because I got lunches. I decided to go out and get them. I would do the switchboard. I would sit in for Barbara O'Donnell, the secretary, when she would go on all the lunches. But I decided they were having sandwiches, and I went, you know what? I think I could do better than that. So I went to the restaurants around in the West End, around Whitmore Street, which is where Apple was, and asked them I said, look, I work for the Beatles. Can I have real meals on plates on china? And so they did. And I mean, Neil Aspinall, they were also amazed that Peter Asher finally said, would you be my assistant?
Oh, wow.
Okay. And he said, could you still get my lunches? And I went, okay.
It's a very true saying that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Oh, listen, yeah, I guess you're right.
That's right. God. Well, and, I mean, imagine you're working in some little trattoria or whatever it was on Wigmore Street, and in walks this, hot chick with an American accent claiming she works for the Beatles. You're going to give her the plates just to see if you ever get them back. I mean, you're going to give it a crack, aren't you? You got it. And then, if the plates come back, then you can brag the Beatles ate off these plates, Right?
No kidding. I wonder if they ever used them again. Maybe
they probably sold them for quids.
Yeah.
We used to sit in Rembrandt up at home in Heswell, and we would go to Birkenhead Market or Paddy's Market in Liverpool and buy sheets seconds. They had like a run in them or something, and we'd sit with pinking shears and cut them into like 3-inch squares and send them to the fans and say, we had to change Paul's sheets and he's getting new bedding and this, that, and the other, but he wanted you to have this. We used to buy gobs and bags of shirt buttons in sacks, in trash bags.
George Harrison's mother did too. She used to buy guitar strings and cut them into 2-inch pieces and mail them to the fans.
George was changing his strings this morning, and
this broke, you might like this,
and he wanted you to have it. We would sit for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I'd never heard those stories.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. but towels and pillowcases and all kinds of stuff. So I'm willing to bet they sold those plates as
Probably.
They probably did. This was 68. Absolutely. They were still pretty popular at that point.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So when you became Peter's assistant, what was sort of that was where you would learn production, right? Or production assisting.
Well, Peter was he was looking for all the new artists. So we listened to all the tapes that came in. And then I did all the studio booking at Trident Studios, because that was the major studio that the Apple artists used, not EMI.
Yeah. Right.
So that's what I did mostly, was booking sessions and listening to tapes and writing letters saying, no, thank you.
No, it's tough.
Yeah.
I was before BMG signed me in 1988. I was turned down by 19 record companies. So I still have all the letters. You just got to hit the right person at the right day at the right time.
Yeah.
It just happened to be in Germany. So we were on the road again.
Yeah, I had to move to Munich to get my
oh my goodness.
Sorry, another day.
Yeah. Another day. I did live in Germany for 4 years, by the way.
Oh, whereabouts?
I lived actually in Neu-Isenburg, outside of Frankfurt, but my boyfriend was a promoter. And so I moved there and we did more tours. I did more touring in Germany for 4 years.
My goodness.
When you were at Apple, were the Apple scruffs around in those days?
They definitely were.
Were they okay with you?
Yeah, they were fine.
Mm.
The girls were nice. You'd see them everywhere. They were at EMI, they were at Paul's house, they were at Apple, they were Trident. I mean, they were part of the family as far as I was concerned.
I still see some of them on internet. Yeah.
Facebook,
Yeah, they're still around. Yeah.
God bless them.
A little older and a little wiser, as we all are.
Yes, no kidding. Well, I just found a letter the other day. I'm not sure where I got it, maybe from Mark Lewis, and I'm not really sure, that I wrote to Lizzie Bravo.
Yeah.
Because apparently they had sung on, someone says they sang on Across the Universe. They called them in from the street.
Great.
They come in and sing. And so she wrote me a letter saying, when's it going to be released?
Wow, very interesting. Speaking of release, our friend Sarah Fish is asking, is your book still available? Your Miss O'Dell?
It is on Amazon.
Okay.
They're still selling it. Believe me, it's unbelievable, because it's been out since 2009, I think. So
Great.
You can still order it either audio or, well, I think any of them now are still on Amazon.
That's fantastic.
I got a message this morning from Pamela DeBar, who said she'd met you some time ago.
Yes, I did look at her creative writing
herself.
Yeah, I did her creative writing thing for one night.
Yeah. She's actually on the road she does her goddess workshops. She's the author, for those of you who don't know, she's the New York Times bestselling author of I'm with the Band. And we actually have her booked at the 8th Room, formerly Douglas Corner in Nashville, for her one night only, an evening with the Ladies of Rock and Roll. McCartney Studios presents. So you and I should talk about doing that with you.
I love that. That's great. Yeah. Actually, I've been dying to get Pamela to do a thing with me where we can really talk about groupie stuff.
Yes.
Because
I'll reintroduce you.
Yeah, that's always a top people who say, oh, you were a groupie. And it's like, so there's a whole big story around all of that. And I never thought I was, but there were girls who actually said, yes, I am. Yeah.
Well, Pamela has literally made a brand out of it. Her license plate is groupie,
Yes.
and in those days, they were known as groupies, but now looking back, you would think about it as more of a muse, right? Inspiration for their mood and the songs, and whether they would get out of bed and tour or not. I mean, there was a whole cadre of beautiful women who emotionally and sometimes physically supported these guys. And without those women, I don't mean me, but I mean the female form, who knows what would have happened? They'd have just, stayed in and grown their toenails, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. They were extremely valuable to the music, actually.
Absolutely.
I mean, well, okay, I won't talk about my documentary. We talk a little about that.
Yes.
I was going to say so.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that. Karen, our friend from Edinburgh, is asking, how good was it to be at the show on the rooftop? When asked what is the one gig you would love to have seen, his answer is always to have been on that rooftop, sat beside Alan Parsons. How did that day all unfold? Because Billy Preston was there, and they were all just there. How did it come to be that they went on the roof?
From my point of view, they talked about going a lot of places, including the Grand Canyon, which I was very much for, being from Arizona. I thought, well, that's cool. The Beatles at the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
But eventually, I think a lot to do with George, from what I gather. No, he didn't want to travel. He didn't want to do it. So they agreed on the roof. But the roof was not very strong.
Right.
We girls used to sunbathe up there whenever there was sun, which wasn't often. And so my office was, Peter and my offices were right below the roof. I mean, we're on the top floor. So we saw them putting up all the supports and the beams and everything and taking stuff up there. But we also got a memo saying no employees were allowed up there.
Oh,
it just wasn't safe enough.
Right. God.
But being the American that I am, I
girl.
I had made friends with the camera crew, and Tony Richmond, the cameraman, came up and said, "Come up." And I said, "No, I can't need you. Yeah, you're my assistant." So he took me up there. Little did I know, there were only seats for 4 people. It was like, my recollection is a bench, but some people say it was seats. I remember a bench. So I sat right near the roof, over the side, because I wanted to see what the people on the street were going to do.
Yeah.
Right. And you could hang on to the chimney if it all went south.
Oh my gosh. I see myself lean over now and think I would never do that today.
No,
So, and then eventually Ken Mansfield, who worked for Apple at Capitol Records, and then Maureen and Yoko. So we were actually the only 4 people who had a seat on the roof.
Good God.
And it was exhilarating. They sounded amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, it was freezing cold.
I was going to say it was
terrible,
for a reason, wasn't it?
There is no way to describe, because the wind was blowing, and that cold.
It was what, January 29th, January 30th, something like that?
Yeah, January 30th. I think. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, end of January.
Who knew it would be? I mean, who knew it would end up being what it is today, as iconic as it is?
Wow.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
Mm.
Karen is also saying one other place that they apparently discussed was Primrose Hill, and that's full circle. That's my nephew James McCartney's new single. It's called Primrose Hill.
Oh yeah, that's true. They did talk about that.
When we used to occasionally go stay in Cavendish Avenue in London, Paul and I would go to Primrose Hill with Martha, the dog, and walk out. He loved that place. I think that's where he got the inspiration for Fool on the Hill.
Fool on the Hill, I do
that
too.
And the Maharishi somewhere became Fool on the Hill. But it's great that Primrose Hill is still a green open space in a built-up city.
I always think of Primrose Hill in relation to Ray Connolly. Do you know Ray?
I do.
Yeah. Ray wrote the foreword to the book I've just released.
There Are Faces I Remember.
Oh, bless him. He had a dreadful bout with COVID when he was really, really ill. He lost his memory. He had to learn to speak again. He had a tracheotomy.
For a while. He's okay now.
He's okay. Yeah.
But no,
Ray's
a lovely man.
But he's back and writing again.
Why does Primrose Hill remind you of Ray?
Because he and Plum used to live there.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I think they still do. Don't they still live in the same house?
No,
they
don't.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we're getting in the weeds.
Anyway, I'll write to him today and tell him all about this.
So you returned to the States in 1972, and you were hired because, again, Derek was such a den mother, if you will. He would introduce anybody to anybody. Yeah. And a hilarious. You came back to the States at the end of the Beatles, right, in 1972, and went to work for the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Not to be outdone.
How's that for name dropping?
Well, you know what I always say, if you've got the Beatles as the first list on your resume, where do you go? You can only go down, right?
Well, I guess.
Actually, after I worked for Apple, I helped out Derek and the Dominoes for a little bit in London while they were forming and going crazy. And then I went back to LA to work for Peter. He brought me back to be, well, not, yeah, for him, for his Peter Asher management. So I worked for him for about a year, and then I got an offer with the Stones. Poor Peter.
Well, you know, it just, life goes on, right? You have to follow your heart and take your parents' lessons that you just go be you, go be Chris. You know,
I could never have not done that. That was quite an exciting.
I bet. Yes.
Yeah, they're just amazing.
And so you were doing essentially what you were doing at Trident and Apple, right? Was booking the sessions for Exile on Main Street.
When I was working for the Stones, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. When I worked for them, we were in LA. I got them homes in LA. They were spending, probably it was about 6 months. I keep thinking it was a year. It felt like a year. And I got them homes, and then I spent every day at Mick's house, and they were finishing Exile. So I did all the lyrics, typed all the lyrics. I was really good at typing lyrics at that point. And here's the thing, George made it easy. He handed me the written lyrics. The Stones, I had to sit and listen to every track and try to figure it out what they were. So it was time consuming.
With mixed pronunciation.
Yeah, exactly. I have the lyric sheets of where he had to make corrections.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And when I hear Mick now, it sounds like Mick doing an impersonation of Mick.
That's funny. That's funny. I didn't see them on, I'm not going to see them on this tour. I said, I've seen enough.
Yeah.
You can only
But you know, you've got to hand it to these guys in their 80s, and they're still rocking, still doing it.
Excuse me, 94.
Oh, you are still doing it.
I mean, you're not out touring, but you know,
not yet. No,
writing books and running a tea company and CBD and wine and writing limericks and doing all
but
kinds
that's a sitting down job.
Oh well, you know that's
but you're not laying down. That's the main point.
Not anymore.
I know. I mean, arguably Ringo Starr's got a sitting down job, but you know he's still getting it done.
Yeah,
right.
I know. Yeah,
that's crazy. So then, I guess it would be through your connections with Peter, and it's really a small business, isn't it? Rock and roll. When you're in a clique, it's you know, one begets the other it's like a Rolodex game of Rolodex. So how did you get involved with, say, Crosby, Stills and Nash?
Well, I had done the Stones tour, and in all transparency, afterwards I had to get off drugs and alcohol.
Okay, good.
Back 72.
I'll drink to that. Good for you.
I wish I were drinking to it. So my friend owned a travel agency, Journeys Far and Near. And I went to work for her, and we started developing these great itineraries that nobody'd really had before. And Bill Graham's office loved it. And so they called me and said, do you want to go on Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young tour that we're doing? And I went, yeah, sure. So that was actually the first tour. I toured with the Stones, but as the assistant to the Stones, not as a tour person.
Right.
So that was the beginning of my touring career, so to speak.
There wouldn't have been many women in tour management, in rock and roll tour management in those days.
Yeah.
There were a few that were like tour managers or traveling with musicians, smaller, but these were huge tours. We're talking over 100 people on the tours Bill Graham did in the early 70s. So definitely I was probably the first one to have ever operated on that level of touring.
Because it's semis of equipment and buses of people and people who, we didn't have cell phones or fax machines or let alone even Motorola beepers yet, right?
We did it all by hello.
Yeah, right. And knocking on hotel doors and standing there with ice buckets if they came to the door sleepy and the bus was ready to go.
You got it. You got
they did that in England with a few bands that shall remain nameless because they turned out to be nasty people. But it's the old herding cats, isn't it? But it's herding cats with guitars.
Totally. And lovely people. Musicians are wonderful. They're absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
But they live a different lifestyle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Our friend, back to the Primrose Hill thing for a second. Karen in Edinburgh is quite the, I don't know whether it's an anthropologist or what you would call it, but Archibald Primrose was the first Earl of Midlothian in Scotland, and whom the hill is named after, is a 12th cousin of the McCartneys.
Wow.
Well.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Remember, you heard this here.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Who knew?
Crazy. Yeah, amazing. So you returned to the States. You're now back here. You've done the Exile on Main Street tour and whatever. And at some point, May Pang.
Yep. Well, yeah, she was telling me that when she and John were staying in Santa Monica on their last weekend trip, that you came to visit and you stayed with them.
Yeah, I came for a night and never left.
The thing that wouldn't leave.
That's the fun part of it, isn't it? When you're just like, okay, I think I'll just stay here. Well, I was living in LA, so literally I had a flat in the valley, but they were in Santa Monica at Peter Lawford's house.
That's right, yeah. Yeah.
And
I spoke to her last week and she said, oh, do ask Chris about our time together in Santa Monica.
It was
some of it she'll be able to tell you, and some of it you won't.
Well, there's truth to that. But it was actually a really good time because they talk about the last weekend being like John was totally out of it. That is not true. He was at the beginning, and then when they started doing the Pussycats album, Harry Nilsson's album, John really just quit doing everything more or less. And up early in the morning, we'd all lay by the pool and wait for Keith Moon to come out in his Nazi gear and salute.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people at that house staying. And it was actually a really, really interesting time.
I bet it was.
Yeah. And a lot happened. I mean, did we go out? And now I'm not saying everybody was straight and clean. No, I think John was. That may have, and May, because May remembers. She's the only person who remembers everything, actually.
She's still not much of a drinker. You can't get a drink. Maybe at a wedding,
She was at my house when she did the gallery thing a few months back, and someone gave her a bottle of champagne. It's downstairs in my little storage cabinet.
I'll be right there. We'll come and get it.
Over. I should have brought it out.
No, she was delighted when she knew you were going to come on our little TeaFlix show. So
do you happen to know how they wound up? I mean, what was this, 1973? Was Peter Lawford still alive? Did he still own the house?
Oh, absolutely. In fact,
why would he rent it out to a bunch of maniacs?
Well, he wasn't living. He lived in town off Sunset Boulevard. We went to his place to play pool quite often, actually. And I think John was there, Ringo was there, John was going to record, and they were all at the Beverly Wilshire. And I think Peter said, well, I got a house on the beach. Why not? Why don't you just go stay there? That's the way I figured it.
Wow.
So they went, and it was a beautiful house. The thing about the house, though,
I've been there. It's gorgeous.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Oh, it was gorgeous. And of course, it was where Marilyn Monroe had her affairs with the Kennedys.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, boy.
Quite the legendary piece of real estate, I'd say.
No kidding.
Yeah. And steps from a wonderful beach cafe now. So you could get breakfast and ride the bike path and tell the story. I wonder who owns it now, or if it's an Airbnb, because that's got to be one of the most legendary houses outside, the Ozzie and Harriet house and the Brady Bunch house. That's going to be one of the most legendary places in LA, I think.
I haven't been by it in a long time. It was there at one point.
Yeah, I was there probably 4 or 5 years ago. So I don't know if it's been remodeled or what have you, but good grief. Yeah, Paul Moody is on. He's our friend. He lives on the beach here down in Playa del Rey, and he knows all about all the old beach real estate. His late mom was a big jazz fan, and she knew all the jazz musicians in town, and there would be these beach hangouts and these jazz things, which was fantastic. So I'm sure Mrs. Moody probably knew all of those same people, birds of a feather flock together.
Didn't Paul and Linda come and visit there?
They did indeed. In fact, it's May has the iconic photo of the last time they were John and Paul were actually photographed together.
Oh, really? Yeah.
They showed up. It was a time when things were not so great.
Yeah.
And so it was a big deal that they were coming. I think it's like, when you find out the principal's going to come to your class and look, we all got our best clothes, and some of us made it really quiet and kind of so that they could so they could hang out and talk.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Paul is just saying his mom, Jeannie, used to swim with Peter Lawford out in the Santa Monica Bay here. So you see, talk about full circle, small world.
Yeah,
I love it.
You stayed at his house and he's watching your show.
Hey, we're not off doing some name dropping today, are we?
We are. I'm going to have 3 hernias and a back brace to pick all these names up. Crazy. What's another crazy either studio or tour story that springs to mind?
Oh my gosh, there's so many different ones. I know that Angie was saying something that May had mentioned when she and I went to buy a bathing suit when we were staying at the house. I didn't have a bathing suit, and of course I wasn't going to drive all the way to the valley to pick one up in my flat. So we decided to go shopping. So we got in my little yellow Toyota, whatever it was, went somewhere in Santa Monica, close to Venice, and I parallel parked, and I opened the door, and as I opened the door there was a huge bang crash, and I looked, and there was this guy on the ground on a bicycle.
Oh shoot.
And I'm like, oh my God. So of course the police came. Now he said he was okay. We helped him up, put him on the curb, and the police came, and I didn't have my driver's license.
Oh.
I looked and looked and looked, and I said, I don't have my driver's license. Now this man was from Mexico or somewhere like that. In the end, they should have ticketed me, and they didn't. And May and I felt so bad that the police were actually letting me go when I should have actually had to pay the consequences. But the guy was faking a concussion. Anyway, we stuck his bike and him in my car and drove him home. We felt so bad.
Good God. Yeah, but isn't that sad though that the police would automatically give the white person a pass?
That is exactly what happened.
Not the brown person.
Yeah.
And it upset both May and I. So we go back to the beach, and John and Ringo and everyone are out by the pool, and we sit down and we're going, oh my God, we've just had this terrible experience. And May said, yeah, we're afraid this guy is going to sue Chris. And John went, yeah, don't worry, everybody's suing me. And that was the end of the conversation.
Typical Lennon. Like I see your bike accident, I raise you Apple lawsuits.
Exactly.
Karen's asking, Chris, I understand the song Pisces Apple Lady is an ode to yourself. It's a great song. What's the backstory? And is that, I know that's told in your book, which is still available on Amazon. And do you get the time in your forthcoming documentary to talk about things like that?
Somewhat. Yes, the answer is yes, but not to a great length. We had a lot to talk about on that documentary, let me tell you. And if Simon's here, he will know if we did, because he's probably seen it a million times. Leon Russell came to Apple with Denny Cordell, who was a producer who did Procol Harum and the Moody Blues, and he must have liked me, because we went out a few times, and I went, yeah, I don't think I need an American. I want an English guy. I was looking for Englishmen, not Americans. And I kept getting set up with Americans, James Taylor. So I'm like, okay. So anyway, I go to the studio the night he's leaving, and he sings this song, Pisces Apple Lady, right before he was leaving to go back. And I went, oh, he likes me.
He really, really likes me.
Really likes me.
You should have told him the way to let him down gently is you'd let him give you half the publishing.
Darn. You know what? All those songs and no money. Patty and I need to sit down and work this one out. Anyway, so I went back with Leon to LA for a while. So that was the story of Pisces Apple Lady. It was lovely. First song anyone wrote for me.
The one and only time I met Leon Russell was on a New Year's morning. It would have been the early 70s at my other stepbrother, Mike McCartney's house. Mm-hmm. There had been a big McCartney family New Year's Eve shindig the night before. And people, at our house, we got the turn for that year. And Billy Connolly was there. He jumped out of my upstairs bedroom window with a little tiny parachute from a cornflakes box.
Oh no!
Yeah, he was okay. He landed on the gravel driveway. It wasn't very far, so the window had a little dormer thing down it, like a little Swiss chalet. So he probably only jumped 7 or 8 feet, but whatever. And so they decided to cart. Leon decided to cart Billy Connolly back to Mike McGee's house, and there was really kind of nowhere to sleep. There were bodies all over the place. So we went down the next morning with all the leftover. We made like a strata, I guess you'd call it, a bread pudding out of. We had eggs and we had dessert and we had Christmas cake and we had sausage and we had all kinds of stuff. So we made this big tray of stuff and took it down to Mike and Angie's house, and Leon Russell opened the door and he was kind of like squeaked like that. I said, "Are you okay?" Because I'm a kid, I'm 12 or something. I said, "Are you okay, Mr. Leon?" And he's like, "Yeah." He said, "I had to sleep in one of the baby's prams." He curled up in Benna's pram because it was the only place to sleep.
Oh my gosh.
I remember thinking, don't you think the floor might have been a better option? But that wasn't the only surprise of the morning. On the way out, we go and there's Billy. It's January 1st in Merseyside. It's freezing. And Billy Connolly is standing with a huge extension cord and the Hoover, the vacuum, in the middle of the lawn in a pair of red and white boxer shorts and his yellow banana boots and nothing else.
Oh.
And he's trying, and sunglasses, and he's trying to vacuum up the snow because it's blinded him and he's got a hangover.
Oh, stop it. That's hysterical.
And Leon, standing at the door accepting this, baked whatever it was, didn't seem to think there was anything unusual about that at all.
Yeah, they don't make him like that anymore.
No, they don't.
No, I love Billy Connolly. I don't know how many Americans really know of him, but boy,
he was absolute genius.
I thought he was the funniest man ever.
Yeah, a real sweetheart. Yeah.
For real.
That is absolutely wild. And Sammy, our friend in Atlanta, saying, "I couldn't love Billy Connolly more if I tried." I know.
Exactly.
He's an absolute genius. He was the one, he used one of my favorite lines. He said, "Well, I recently celebrated my 55th birthday. I treated myself to a nice bubble bath." He said, "I laid there and the bubbles dissipated. And then I became depressed. I looked down at my business." And he says, and there he was laying there like a wee mouse nestled in shredded newspaper. Oh my God, Lee Connolly would come up with a description of his block and tackle like a wee mouse nestled in shredded newspaper.
That is.
What else he said about,
oh,
if you leave a man in a room alone with a tea cozy, I defy him not to swear, put it on.
not to try it on, either here or there or somewhere. Yeah. Never leave a grown man alone with a tea cozy.
What a wonderful man.
What a man.
But we've between us, we've had a few adventures here and there, I reckon, don't you, Chris?
I think so.
1 or 2, yeah.
I think 1 or 2. Yeah, we were very fortunate to have lived in a really nice time, a really great time, don't you think?
Yes. I do. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
So scrolling across the bottom here, so that people can learn more about you, we have your website, which is very, very easy, missodell.com. And the documentary will be out probably Q3. It'll be out before the 4th quarter, we would hope, but not to make Simon Weitzman break into a sweat. We won't say an exact date just yet.
No, but when we know, we'll give it plenty of promotion.
Absolutely. Ashley's saying in Birmingham, Alabama, isn't that the proper place for a tea cozy? Boy, we're spilling the tea today.
Behave yourself. This is
it's a family show.
Family show, yeah, exactly.
And you are going to be at Beatle Week in Liverpool, are you not?
I am. I'm 1st of August. I'm doing the Chicago Beatle Fest, and then I'm going to Liverpool. That is most exciting to me. Yeah. Anything, because I've been to Liverpool the one time, as I was saying, or maybe twice. I think I went with Mal once. But I'm excited to go back there and see it and do the Beatle Week. I've never been to Beatle Week. So
it's fantastic.
Great. Yeah.
So I will, of course, Frida Kelly, right? So
yes.
she'll
I just met her in New York this year.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh.
Never met. I couldn't believe it.
We'll make sure that you guys have all of each other's numbers and get to have a cup of tea. And we'll, if you don't already know John Keats and Bill Heckle, and
Cavern.
Shannon, the artist, who's best friend, they own the Cavern Club. Along with Julia Baird, John's half sister. So we'll set you up we'll give you an old fashioned Rolodex for your Liverpool.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would love that. Yeah.
That's great. So yeah, everybody's saying thank you for a lovely chat. And Ashley, our friend Ashley Davey, who is also a good friend of Frida's, will be going to Liverpool. So make sure you grab a coffee or a cup of tea with Ashley.
Yeah, we put you all in touch.
Looking for you, Ashley.
Yeah, we'll
say hi.
He's great. We'll make sure your dance card is plentiful. How's that?
Thank you. I love it. You guys are wonderful.
Oh, you too. And we're all still here to tell the tale. That's the most important part.
That's the important thing. This is us putting history on record.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
the right way.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved you saying today was that, during the latter part of the last weekend, and May gets a lot of flack for sort of stealing John and keeping him rolling on drugs and alcohol and whatever. But, he straightened out during that time. He was productive. He was happy. He was our John Winston.
And she was also effective in getting him to communicate with Julian again.
Reconnect with Julian.
She
absolutely.
Really that situation along.
I knew John when I met John. He had just started with Yoko. They were actually not even public yet, press-wise. But that period of time when May was with him was the time that I found him so much more approachable, so much more at ease, so much less sort of out there. He was wonderful.
Absolutely. So Angie got a letter this week from Queen Camilla of England requesting a copy of her latest Liverpool Limericks and Other Random Irish Haikus book for the Royal Reading Library.
So thrilled. Yeah.
And Martin and I we're out to lunch around the corner, and the Ring doorbell goes off, and it's the mailman going, signature required. I'm like, oh, that's never good. Oh, that's never a good thing. And we came home, and he came back, God bless him, and it was a personally hand-signed and scribed letter from Queen Camilla asking Angie for a copy of her limerick book. Which
you got it there?
Yeah.
Show us?
Yeah, so no, it's available on MsMcCartney'steas.com.
No, I mean Camilla's letter.
Oh yes,
no,
it's
I'll
actually.
copy it to you.
I'll send you a copy of it.
Yeah.
And so Paul Moody, above most people on this show, always hangs around for the limerick. Only our very special guests get one, and you get two verses. Because we couldn't fit you into one. So, are you ready?
I am.
A 1, 2, 3. In the halls of apple she shone. Chris O'Dell and her legend have grown. With Beatles and Stones and Dylan's deep tones, her presence in music was known. And today we enjoyed Miss O'Dell with musical memories to tell. She told us some stories of rockers' past glories. So thanks, Chris, it really was swell.
Oh my God, that is so amazing. Thank you. Hey, Simon, that should be included in our documentary somewhere.
Okay. We'll film it. We'll film it for you.
That was lovely. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right.
So everybody keep your eyes peeled. Go follow Chris on all of her social media and go register for her newsletter at missodell.com. And Simon's saying we just made the end credits in their film. Yay!
Okay, that's better than nothing, right?
That's a fantastic idea.
It's better than nothing. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, yeah, we're gonna do that. That's good. It'll be in the credits. I love it.
So yeah, go follow Chris and stay tuned. If you're going to Liverpool, I'm sure her public appearances will be, notified all over the place by the Fab Beatle Week people. We love you lots. Thank you for spending. I know how busy you are with this film, so thank you for spending so much time with us today. And it will be posted later on this afternoon on McCartney.com. We will feature you on the front page.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye. God bless.
We'll see you soon.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.